On the broadcast tonight, Korea's nominee for Deputy Prime Minister for Economy and Finance Minister says drawing up a budget supplement may be relevant at this point, hinting at the possibility of a cut in this year's growth forecast. In the wake of April's deadly ferry disaster, Prime Minister Chung Hong-won addresses the public, vowing to create a committee tasked with improving safety all across the Korean society. And Samsung Electronics says its second quarter operating income has declined to a two-year low at $7.1 billion, which is far below analysts' estimate of $8 billion. Early edition begins now.
I see trees of green, red roses.
늘 남편 먼저,
I see them
늘 자식 먼저.
for me and
레이디 퍼스트라는 말을 믿고 살아온 당신. 오늘만큼은 세상 누구보다 당신이 먼저입니다.
한 분 한 분 특별하게 모시겠습니다.
Excellence in Flight, Korean Air.
It is 5 a.m. in New York, 5 p.m. in Beijing, and 6 p.m. on Tuesday, the 8th of July here in Seoul. Live from Seoul, I'm Moon Gun-young.
And I'm Daniel Chen. Thank you for joining us. We begin with the continuation of the investigation into the deadly Seoul ferry disaster.
Right, on Tuesday, investigators released an interim report that confirms what many of us had already suspected, that the ferry operator, the government, and rescue teams were all responsible in one form or another for the tragedy.
Our Park Ji-won reports on the government's first official investigation results.
It's around 3 p.m. on April 16th, about 6 hours after the Seoul ferry first encountered trouble. Officials from the Coast Guard and a rescue team communicate about the situation at the accident site.
이번에 진짜 공기선 없나? 공기선 뭐안 가져간다. 그래, 그 기본적인 것 자체는 차가 이제 그 카렉터로 정이 타고 가기 때문에 이래저래 장비를 좀 많이 실을 수 없는 상황이라서.
Rescue teams did not even have enough boats to take to the scene of the accident.
이동할 수 있는 배가 없잖아요, 지금. 배가 없고. 뭐, 그거하고는 그냥 연락을 지어봐도 연락은 잘 안 되고요.
These soundbites were made public during the ongoing parliamentary probe into the ferry disaster. They add credence to the criticism that authorities wasted precious time in the early hours of the accident because they weren't prepared. The Board of Audit and Inspection of Korea also found the information provided on a form submitted by the ferry operator to receive a navigation license for the Seoul ferry was altered, and that the local Maritime Affairs Administration failed to catch it. Cargo was also not reported properly. The ferry operator had reported that 97 vehicles were aboard the vessel that day, but in fact the number was nearly double that, at 185. Another factor leading to the capsizing. Some Coast Guard officials stand accused of receiving kickbacks just days before a regulations committee convened to make a determination on the Seoul's license. From corruption and lax oversight to failed rescue efforts, the combination of factors were deadly. Nearly 300 people have been confirmed dead in the tragedy, and 11 people remain unaccounted for. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Well, President Park Geun-hye's plans to restructure the government in response to the ferry disaster in April that killed more than 300 people have been stuck in first gear, slowed down by cabinet appointment failures and a parliamentary deadlock over related bills.
And in an effort to kick things into higher gear, the Prime Minister has announced a new joint committee that will be composed of government officials and civilians. Our Choi Yoo-sun has the details.
The government has put forth a new plan to have civilians take part in President Park's national reform drive.
Having the government and civilians take part in the National Reform Committee under the Prime Minister's office, I plan to establish a joint participation system.
In an address to the nation Tuesday, the Prime Minister said the committee will gather public opinion on reforms on ways to improve national safety and rooting out social corruption. This comes after President Bak pledged sweeping reforms within the government and the public sector in response to April's deadly ferry disaster. Chung added the committee will mainly focus on bolstering public awareness and safety inspections.
After a thorough discussion at the committee, we will finalize a master plan on safety innovation, a blueprint for safer Korea by next February.
Vowing to set a framework for public reform within the month, the Prime Minister also urged the Parliament to support a swift passage of government restructuring and reform-related bills. A key part of President Bak's restructuring plan includes establishing a safety ministry to oversee management of all forms of natural and man-made disasters. Prime Minister Chung, who was retained after he resigned to take responsibility for the government's lax response to the ferry accident, also promised the public that he would communicate better with the people as well as political parties and not hesitate in delivering public opinion to the president. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News.
Korea's new finance minister-designate Choi Kyung-won has promised all-out efforts to boost domestic demand to lead the economy out of a low-growth trap. Well, during his confirmation hearing this Tuesday, Choi said he wants to make it easier for home buyers to get mortgage loans from banks. Our Ji Myung-dil gives us a peek at what may be the nation's economic roadmap for the remainder of the Park administration.
Finance Minister nominee Choi Kyung-won says his initial focus will be removing red tape and other restrictions that make it difficult for consumers to buy a home. In his parliamentary confirmation hearing Tuesday, Choi said one area he will attend to urgently is easing what he called outdated restrictions on housing loans.
Debt-to-income and loan-to-value rules that have limited purchases have been in place for more than a decade, and there have been reasonable efforts to improve the system. We will come up with more reasonable measures.
Choi, who will also be a deputy prime minister if he is confirmed, said the government is requiring banks to excessively limit housing loans, as it has failed to change regulations written more than 10 years ago when there were worries about property market bubbles. Adopted during the housing market boom, the rules strictly restrict the size of a home loan that can be given to home buyers. But the nominee did not say how he would bring the nation's rapidly growing household debt problem under control. Critics say it will only get worse if loan restrictions are eased. Choi said the need to boost domestic demand has become more urgent as the April ferry disaster prompted many consumers to refrain from leisure activities, thereby slowing the recovery.
The economic team will place its focus on boosting domestic demand through increasing household income and improving consumer sentiment.
The nominee also said he was opposed to tax hikes aimed at making up for a revenue shortfall, adding that revenues should be raised by boosting economic activities, not by raising taxes. Choi said when it comes to extra budget, he said the government would take a comprehensive approach looking into the economic conditions and that the government is in the middle of crafting a budget plan for next year. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
Well, Samsung Electronics released its estimated operating profit for the second quarter on this Tuesday, and it did not make for a pretty reading. Profits fell below the psychologically significant 8 trillion won mark for the first time in 2 years. What could be the cause and what is expected to come, our Na Hyun-kyung explains.
Industry insiders in Seoul are calling it an earnings shock. Samsung Electronics' second quarter earnings guidance stands at 7.2 trillion won, or just above $7 billion, falling 15% from the previous quarter and down a whopping 25% from the same period last year. The company attributed the lower-than-expected operating profit to a slowdown in the growth of the global smartphone market and a strong Korean currency.
Samsung had a hard time in high-end smartphone segment because Galaxy S5 was not sold well. Second, Samsung did not focus on mid and low-end smartphone market because of price down pressure from Chinese smartphone competitors.
Experts add if Samsung fails to beat off competition from Apple and Chinese manufacturers such as Xiaomi and Lenovo by the end of the year, the results will take a toll on the Korean economy as well, given that Samsung last year took up nearly 50% of the combined net profit generated by all listed companies in Korea. Samsung says the far from impressive numbers are hardly related to its ill chairman Lee Gun-hee, but with the second quarter profit hitting a two-year low, investors are likely to put more pressure on the tech giant's management. 나현경, Arirang News.
Some disturbing developments here. Rude awakening for the Korean Army. North Korean troops have breached the inter-Korean armistice line at least 5 times this year as part of infiltration training. A South Korean military official who asked not to be named says the drills ordered by leader Kim Jong-un are designed to prepare for surprise attacks inside the demilitarized zone. Most of the violations have come at night and resulted in South Korean troops firing warning shots, sending them back north of the border. The most recent breach came in mid-June when 3 North Korean troops got as close as 600 meters away from a general outpost in the city of Paju, just north of Seoul, where they broke a bell that had been set up for North Koreans hoping to defect. The recent cases have prompted the South Korean military to reassess its border defenses and the United Nations Command to send a notice to the north urging it to stop the border violations. And North Korean leader Kim Jong-un limped onto the stage as he attended a mass memorial service commemorating the 20th anniversary of the death of his grandfather and North Korea's founder Kim Il-sung. Tuesday's memorial was broadcast live by the state media, and the young Kim was shown walking with a visible limp. The reason for the limp has not yet been known, but it is a rare display of weakness in a country whose leaders are considered semi-divine. Senior military officers and party officials also attended the ceremony, but Kim Kyung-hee, the daughter of Kim Il-sung and aunt of Kim Jong-un, was not present there. Also absent was Kim Yang-gun, who is in charge of North Korea's cross-border affairs. Staying on the topic of North Korea, and it's with this symbolic anniversary, North Korea is trying to extract some much-needed cash from a pro-Pyongyang Federation of Koreans living in Japan. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
North Korea's main national daily Nodong Shinmun has published a rare article praising a pro-Pyongyang Federation of Koreans living in Japan known as Chocheongmyeon. Titled The Legend of Love Engraved in the History of North Koreans in Japan, the article says late leader Kim Il-sung showed great interest in the planning and construction of the Mangyongbong, a vessel that was used to carry North Koreans and Federation officials to Pyongyang. It added that Kim said officials from the Federation were revolution comrades. The move comes a matter of days after Japan lifted some sanctions imposed on the North. Pyongyang seems to be laying the groundwork to get financial support from the Federation again, now the regulations on the transfer of money have been eased. Around $300,000 can be remitted to North Korea without prior approval from the Japanese government. However, there are voices of concern emanating out of the Federation. Japanese media reports say some businessmen within the Federation dread becoming the source of funding for North Korea. It seems their woes will deepen, though, as North Korea continues to cozy up with Japan. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Well, one of President Park Geun-hye's key policy goals includes a deregulation drive aimed at improving Korea's relatively weak service sector by creating jobs and reducing barriers to investment and business growth.
And the medical and healthcare sector is among those that will be undergoing drastic reforms. Let's take an in-depth look. For that, we are joined live in the studio by Dr. Chung Hong-won.
Dr. Chung is a professor of health administration at Yonsei University. Dr. Chung, welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure.
Now, we expect the Park administration to carry out some kind of a reform in the healthcare and medical services in the second half of this year. What are we expecting? What can we expect from the administration?
Yeah, there may be two tracks in the healthcare policy related with our current government, current health administration. The first track is the coverage expansion strategy. The other one is the health industry promotion strategy. The first one is to lowering the burden of the patients or people when they use medical care. Second one is to boost the health industry for the economy revitalization. That may be the two broad tracks we can expect.
Well, next is the government's decision to controversially remove restrictions so that hospitals can run profit-seeking subsidiaries. There are some points of contention here. What are those, and how do we expect the two sides to perhaps narrow the differences and come to a consensus?
Yeah, you talked about the two sides. In the past, the contention was between the government and the medical association. Nowadays, it particularly moved to the government and the civil society groups. The big contention is on the two things. First one is whether the direction is right or not. The other one is the current new measure is breaking the current medical law or not. The first one is the opponents, some civil society groups say that the new direction of the government measure would be signify the privatization or profitization of medical care. They say that's not good direction. The government say that no, this is not such kind of privatization. That's the one issue. Another one is the legal issue, is that the current medical law stipulates the non-profit hospital, so the medical legal person as a non-for-profit hospital. So that means they are not allowed to manage the profit-seeking subsidiaries. But the assets or properties of the medical legal persons has been formulated under the benefit of the inheritance tax or transfer taxes. So those are, in a sense, public money. But with the introduction of the profit-seeking subsidiaries in their hand, this can be used as the channel to utilize that for the transfer to the private funds.
Right,
That's
there's
another issue.
Fears, of course, with some new changes trying to be implemented. They're trying to see if it works, but there's resistance from those who fear it might be a prelude to something even bigger that they might not welcome in the near future.
Yeah, and another the actual legal issues, the current. There is some delegation administration to the ministry, but the minister said within the delegation they can manage this kind of new policy, but actually the opposition parties and the civil society groups say that you need to change the law, legislative medical law through the legislative body such as the parliament members, but such kind of administrative change is breaking the current law. That's another issue.
Well, another thing is that we've been seeing a surge in the number of tourists, foreign tourists, coming to Korea just to get medical treatments and whatnot. The booming trend has even earned itself a name, something called medical Hallyu or medical Korean wave. This must be a good thing for the Korean economy. And what, in your view, needs to be done to further boost this industry?
Yeah, this medical Hallyu is a good thing. We need to propel such a tendency, and the government also, not even current government, but also the other previous government, also administration also has supported such policy. For that, we need to remove some barriers, impediment to such a medical Hallyu, such as legally there are so many regulations, so we need to remove such impediments, and as well as we need some. But this is not the major goal of the healthcare system. The major primary goal is to augment the coverage, etc. So we need to keep some balance between this kind of Hallyu type health industry boosting and the augmenting of the public coverage by the public health insurance, etc.
Right, so deregulation with caution, I believe, is the essence of this drive.
Good interpretation.
All right, Dr. Chung Hong-won, professor at Yonsei University, thank you so much for speaking with us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life, talking with you on air and online, connecting you with experts on the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best with Moon Gon-young and Daniel Che on Early Edition at 6.
Now, here in this country, hundreds of drivers in Korea are collectively suing some of the country's biggest automakers. Well, this after the Korean government announced last month that 2 local automakers, including Hyundai Motor and 4 foreign brands, overstated the gas mileage of some of their vehicles. Here's our Hwang Ji-hye with this report.
Consumers who bought cars with overstated gas mileage are collectively taking some of Korea's biggest automakers to court. As of now, around 1,700 people have joined together for the lawsuits. The overwhelming majority are owners of Hyundai Motor's 2013 Santa Fe SUV, taking up almost 90% of claims. Drivers who own Ssangyong Motor's 2013 Corando SUV and some imported cars have also joined the lawsuits. A lawyer working on behalf of the drivers says he expects the number of plaintiffs to rise and top 3,000.
We believe automakers have a warranty responsibility since the vehicles have a flaw in a key factor that measures performance. And the Land Ministry has already verified that there is a problem with the vehicles.
The plaintiffs are seeking between $650 to $3,000 each in compensation. The damages they claim include factors like the extra money they've spent on gas and mental stress. But with the Land Ministry and Industry Ministry divided over the correct way of calculating fuel efficiency, pundits are expecting a fierce legal battle. The Industry Ministry says that the difference between the stated and actual gas mileage of the 2 local car brands remain within the legally allowable level of 5%, while the Land Ministry says they don't. Even if the plaintiffs win, it doesn't mean all of the 110,000 people who own the models in question will receive compensation. Only those who filed a claim will receive a payout. That's because Korea doesn't allow class action lawsuits except for those involving securities. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
The Korean tech giant Samsung Electronics is pairing up with a number of global IT companies to make the Internet of Things a thing of reality. Samsung on Tuesday said it was establishing the Open Interconnect Consortium, which will set standards and build a common framework for the sector. The Internet of Things refers to connecting physical objects to the Internet and exchanging and creating new information. The consortium includes a number of global firms, and that includes Broadcom, Dell, and Intel. Samsung says it plans to reveal the first open source code for smart home and office solutions, and later expand into the healthcare and automobile sectors, among others. Fortune magazine's annual list of the world's biggest companies is out, and Walmart is back on top. Walmart regained the top spot on the Fortune 500 list, unseating energy giant Dutch Royal Shell with nearly $476 billion in revenue. The oil and gas company sank to second, with 2 Chinese energy companies close behind. Samsung Electronics came in at 13th place on the list. That's up 4 notches from last year, and 2 slots higher than its main rival, Apple. A total of 17 Korean companies were listed, with SK Holdings and Hyundai Motor cracking the top 100. Overall, the combined revenues of the top 500 companies was $31.1 trillion, up 2.5% from last year.
Well, time now to get a check on the weather forecast. For that, let's go over to Michelle Park. Michelle, it looks pretty gray outside, which is a sign that Typhoon Noguri is approaching, right?
That's right. And right now, farmers are bracing for the storm, trying to make sure their crops are safe and secure.
Michelle, how long are we expecting to feel the effects of the typhoon?
Well, the typhoon is still far away and right now is only affecting the southern regions and Jeju Island with quite a bit of wind and rain there. However, by tomorrow, as the typhoon gets closer, we can expect heavy rain at rates of 20 millimeters per hour tomorrow across the whole nation. And the discomfort index will also be high tomorrow due to the high humidity and high temperatures, which will get into the 30s for some regions. So try to stay indoors if possible, and if you're driving, please be careful. Now going over to our temperature readings, Seoul will top out at 25 in the morning and reach up to 33 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Daegu and Busan will peak up to 30 and 27 degrees. And moving over to other regions, Jeju Island tops over to 26, Dokdo at 28, while Mangkungang tops out at 27. Well, that's all for now. Michelle Park, and back to you guys.
Thank you for that, Michelle. And that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thank you for watching. For our viewers in Korea, have a wonderful rest of the evening. This has been Daniel Chen.
And I'm Moon Gan-young. To those of you in other parts of the world, have a great start to your day, and we hope to see you right back here, same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.